Hey, this is Chris with Phoenix Gaming, and today we're going to talk about GCPS. So, the Galactic Co-Propaganda Service, Co-Prosperity Sphere. That's actually what it's called. I actually do just make up random things for it just because I never remember. They're just GCPS. And when I'm talking to people, it's usually just, hey, this is Guard for Firefight. Today we're going to talk about command units, and we're going to talk about the command orders. So let's dig in. So like I said, we're going to talk about command units, then we're going to discuss command orders, and then after that we're going to talk about how I'd rank them. And that's not going to be in any particular order. That's not true. It will be in a particular order. But keep in mind, this is not an army I play regularly, and I have a more melee-centric, mobility-based playstyle, so what I think is good may vary from what you think is good. So make sure you let me know in the comments where you think I'm a little off and where you think I'm right. Thanks. And then we're going to have some announcements. There is a Firefight tournament in October. I'm running one. It'll be the day after Michigan GT. It's a 1,500-point tournament. It'll be in Knox, Indiana, which is a very small town in the middle of a cornfield. It is during Knoxtoberfest, but I've been brought up to date. There's been some big changes to Knoxtoberfest. I know I promised everybody, like, brisket and meats and all this other cool stuff. Unfortunately, when my brother took himself off the board, the rest of the board decided to not do the barbecue cook-off this year, so there won't be just a plethora of meat for your meat gazing. Just to keep that in mind, but there will be some fun 1,500-point firefight games going on. And if you're at the Michigan GT, which is the day before my tournament, make sure you come say hi. Every handshake does help me justify my existence through the illusion of pseudo-fame, because I do play with tiny plastic toy soldiers for a living, and anything you can do to make me feel good about myself is appreciated. We are also at 1,264 subscribers. I don't want to have to harangue everybody, so I try to do this very sparingly, but let's try to hit 2,000 before Christmas, so that when I am trying to feel good about what it is I do for a living, I can brag at holiday parties and distract myself from that crushing disappointment my family feels in me because I decided to pursue a career in YouTubing. And then if you want to support me and the channel and help me keep on the illusion that this is a viable career path, make sure you check out the merch store. There's a link in the description. I do have new Vroom and Veerman t-shirts, and they are just as cool as they sound. So that link is in the description. Thank you. Last but not least, big shout out to Military Gaming Command. I do appreciate all the work that they do for veterans everywhere. As a veteran, it means a lot to me that they use gaming to help support veterans out there in the world. So thanks a lot, MGC. Okay, so the first unit we're going to talk about is the Marine Lieutenant. And most of these are going to have a very familiar profile. They're going to 6'12", sprint, move, stuff like that. He shoots on 5s, he assaults on 5s, he's got armor 5, so literally the most generic average of people in the world. 2 hit points, a 4-up nerve, and then height 2, obviously. He is inspiring, so 6-inch reroll nerves. Small unit 3, overwhelm 8. And overwhelm's pretty cool, especially on a command unit. You don't see that a lot, but having overwhelm on a command unit, pretty helpful if you want it to be able to control objectives more effectively. Small unit is also handy just because getting that -1 to hit modifier is good. It gives a black tactician die. He has suppressive fire. So if you don't know, suppressive fire is a charge reaction, and you can make that charge reaction when you are charged, and it's a blaze away with your blaze away weapons. So keep that in mind. That's what it does. And then command orders, move out. All troop and command units, the unit may take an advance action if their first action was steady aim. And that's an aura. And that's really, really good, actually. For an army that seems like it wants to sit, for a person like me who wants to keep moving, that's really beneficial. Being able to go, okay, well, I'm going to steady aim. I'm going to knock off maybe your stealth modifier or your cover modifier, but then also still get to make a 6-inch move. That's pretty helpful. And that really mitigates the staticness that I feel GCPS has had when I've played against them. A lot of GCPS players I've played against seem to want to sit, and I feel like having this lieutenant could really help that. Let's see what the lieutenant can get. It gets a laser pistol or a las pistol if you come from 40K like me. Assault weaponry, you can take veterans, up to 4 of them, and then Marines, up to 9 of them. But if you take one, you cannot take the other. That's what that little asterisk usually means. That being said, both of them will have Blaze Away. So if we add a Marine, and I know it's going to tell me I can't do this, but let's add them. So the veteran's going to shoot on 4s. The Marines are going to shoot on 5s. They both have 18-inch range, 1 die, Blaze Away, trademark, but the veterans are going to have Marksman. So it really comes down to what it is you're going to want out of that unit. Do you want it to stay cheap and you just want some friends to kind of take those shots in case somebody shoots at your lieutenant? Or do you want this to be a decently efficient shooting unit in addition? So I don't think either way to build them would be wrong. Playing the lieutenant with veterans or Marines, I don't think there's a wrong way to do it. It just depends on what your expectations are. If you are just going to go into it going, I just need some ablative hit points to soak when something shoots at me because it's height 4 and I can't really hide, then take the Marines. If you're thinking, man, I want this to get stuck in, I want it to keep moving and shooting, and I want it to be more efficient, then you take the veterans. And the veterans are 11 points and the Marines are 6 points. So there is a bit of a points difference, but you're also getting reroll hit rolls of 1 when you shoot, and shooting on 4. So that's a big difference, especially because you have to consider that he could also be within the range of his own aura, so that unit could steady aim, reroll hit rolls of 1, and then move. So overall, like I said, I don't think there's a wrong way to build it. It's a very cheap command unit, 45 points for just the character, and then all his friends are relatively cheap. Definitely a solid choice. The Ranger Lieutenant. And the Rangers are anti-grav, so it makes sense that Homeboy has anti-grav. Designation Ranger, and Designation, again, for those that are just getting into Firefight, and really for those that maybe have played, but haven't played with a lot of the new changes that came in the command protocols. I don't know if they had Designation Ranger before, because there were a couple of designation keywords prior to the command protocols, but we're seeing a lot more of them. And all designation is this unit has this keyword, and then other things can interact with it. And a great example, we're probably going to get one in a minute, but a great example is the new Volt Chaser stuff. The Volt Chasers command units, a lot of them have like all designation Volt Chaser units get X. So it's a way to create a restriction on orders and things like that without having to list each individual weapon or unit. So it's a very, very positive change because it cleans up the wording in the rules and creates consistency. So again, good job to the rules committee on making that change. But yeah, so Designation Ranger, Inspiring Scout. So that's a pregame move. And again, keep in mind your pregame moves can be advances or sprints. But if you perform a sprint action, you treat obstacles and difficult terrain as open terrain during the Scout move. And you still have to remain 1 inch from enemy units. So Scout's really good. I enjoy Scout. I don't have a ton with it in my Veerman. Obviously creepers. Like there's not a lot going on. But even when I played Enforcers before I ended up selling that army to a new player, jet bikes were just a staple for me because that is a massive Scout movement. Because I think they were 12, 18, so I could just move 18 inches. And then if I went first, I could go if I wanted to, which is another 12-inch movement with a shoot and a 12-inch movement. And I, in fact, did that at a tournament, and the player was just like, what the hell? And super nice guy. It was, I think, the bodyguard mission. He had kind of hid his objectives way across the board, thinking I wouldn't be able to reach him. And then, sure as shit, I cleared, 18 and then 24? So I got there. But, pretty good. Scout's pretty good. Stealthy, Tactician, 2 black dice. Stealthy, of course, is -1 to hit against ranged attacks. Commander orders combat tactics. So this is a 12-inch aura, and all ranger units get vicious, shoot, and weight of fire 2. So again, if you're bringing a couple squads of Rangers, the Ranger Lieutenant is very good. And if you're wondering what Rangers look like, we're going to go over them in detail. But again, they're going to have anti-grav, Scout, Stealthy, and then the main thing is they're going to hit on 4s. And then they have Blaze Away, Marksman, and Trademark. So again, it's a squad that's going to have Blazeway, Marksman, so you're going to reroll hit rolls of 1 in shooting, and then with the Ranger Lieutenant's Order, you'll get Vicious, so you're going to reroll damage dice of 1 as well. So it's a huge bump to their efficiency. And then we've got the Marine Major. So the Marine Major has small unit 3, and I'm not going through their individual stat lines, as you can tell, because a lot of them are close enough that I don't need to. Like, the Ranger Lieutenant hits on 4s, but the Major hits on 5s. Like, there's not a huge difference here. Small Unit 3, Tactician Orange. He's very inspiring, and so far these command units are super cheap. Ranger Lieutenant, 65 points. Marine Major, 70 points. Orange Command Die, very inspiring. Commander orders, on your feet, soldier. That's an instant for 1 command point. Up to 2 units may remove a pin marker. And I didn't go through his loadout options, but there they are. Just to kind of jump back. He can get a shotgun and an energy gauntlet, or can keep the default loadout. Well, he has the energy gauntlet either way, but the Accutech shotgun is actually pretty good. It's 3 dice with pinning, so they're solid. And then Rangers are solid. But I'm not going through the Rangers. The Marine Major can remove a pin off of 2 units within 15, and he's locked into a sword, which is 1 die at AP1, so don't get into melee with him. And then you can take veterans and you can take Marines. So very, very much the same type of thing as the Lieutenant. Now you can get a forward observer who's also 75 points. He brings 2 black command dice. Scout, stealthy, inspiring, also anti-grav. On point, all enemy units. Any friendly unit targeting this unit can ignore the -1 to hit modifier for the unit being in cover. I have to read that again. On point, aura 12 inches. All enemy units. So the way I'm reading this is all enemy units within 12 inches. If you shoot at it, you get to ignore the -1 hit modifier for the unit being in cover. That's interesting. That is going to create some questions if that's how it works. Because if it's an order that affects enemy units, which it would, does that mean a shooting unit could benefit from a different order? I would assume rules as intended, no. But that's a question for the rules committee I'm going to have. Because I'm reading this, and if you already know the answer, let me know. Because this is not, first of all, this is not a unit I've seen on the table. And second of all, this is not an interaction I've really come across where my aura affects your units. Does that count as your unit being affected by it, or does that count as my unit being affected by it by targeting a unit of yours within that aura? And again, I think we're kind of splitting hairs here. But that kind of odd interaction creates an interesting situation. So I'm actually going to take a second. I'm going to poke the rules committee, see if I can get an answer. While I wait for that answer, let's go ahead and move on. And while I'm moving on, once I get the answer, I'll come back and I'll let everybody know. And then the Canis command vehicle will be the last one. It is the only access to a green die they have. This one is a bit different because it's a vehicle. It does move 915, which is kind of fast. Shoots on 4s, assaults on 6s. It's armor 7, but it does not have heavy armor. It's 6 hit points, and then its nerve is 4, health is 4. Or height is 4, not health. I do that a lot. It is Tactician green, like I said. Vehicle, very inspiring. Wield, evade. And then evade is a charge reaction. So again, if you don't know, the way evade works is when I declare a charge, if you have evade, you can use evade. And if you use evade, you take a nerve check. If you pass your nerve check, you make an advance action in a straight line directly away from the assaulting unit. And remember, a straight line is from my unit leader to you. After the assault reaction is resolved, I move the assaulting unit into contact if it is able, otherwise the charge fails. If the nerve has failed or the evading unit does not manage to get out of range of the assaulting unit or cannot move directly away, an assault will be performed as normal. Basically, this is best with things that can run fast. Like 9 inches is pretty good. And if you're at the edge of something's charge range, you can kind of skirt back and cause their charge to fail. So it does require a nerf check. It's not my favorite of charge reactions, but it works and it's useful sometimes. It does have the autocannon, which is 3 dice, AP1, and pinning. So pinning's pretty handy. And then it has ramming, but it also has networked targeting systems. And that's a 12-inch aura, and it only affects vehicles. And the vehicles within 12 inches get weight of fire on all of their weapons. And it's probably good in certain builds. This is arguably probably one of the few units where, kind of like the Rangers, like they're very build specific. A lot of the other stuff it kind of would plug into just about anything. But you've got a couple that, they're kind of build specific. So let's start with which one I think is the worst. And let's start off by saying I don't think any of them are terrible. So I think this is going to be one of those where the gap between the worst and the best is going to be pretty narrow. And a lot of what it's going to boil down to is how well it can be used or how easily it can be implemented. What I mean by that is I would arguably say the forward observer is probably the worst. It can take some pathfinders. They do have tag rifles, which are fine. You can take some sniper rifles, which are fine. But if I understand this right, and I haven't heard back from the rules committee yet, but if I understand this right, you have to be within 12 inches of an enemy unit in order for other models to benefit from it. And if that's the case, that to me is what makes it stand out as kind of the worst. Like, sure, the forward observer does have armor 6 and 3 hit points, but at the same time, you've got to get danger close to things in order for other things to benefit from it. And if you're not killing whatever you're shooting at, there's a good chance that forward observer just becomes a trade piece. You could probably set it up to where that forward observer is kind of like a torpedo, where you load it up with, whatever unit you want to load it up with, and then scout move them, and then try to move them out, get something within 12, pop that aura, and then just, hope you kill whatever it is you're trying to kill. But at the end of the day, in an army that's relatively squishy and not very melee-centric, I think having to get within 12 inches of enemy units in order for your order to be good is a little risky and dangerous. I don't think it's a bad order. I think it has a lot of use. I think there's going to be some matchups where it's probably pretty good. Any other kind of shooty-centric army will probably feel okay. But if you hit like a plague army or a balanced Veerman army or even a melee-centric Veerman army where they're going to outrun you, they're going to come catch you, they're going to assault you, and they're just going to maul you, you got to get real close for that aura to feel pretty good, So I would probably say the FO would be my bottom pick because of that. And again, I don't think it's bad. I think it's just going to require a lot of really careful planning and positioning. Outside of that, I would say either the command vehicle or the Ranger Lieutenant would be my second to the last. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do we have 5 units here? So I think the fourth would either be the command vehicle or the Ranger Lieutenant. If I had to pick one, I'd probably pick the command vehicle. Not because, again, it's bad, but because its aura only affects vehicles, and it's only weight of fire 1. The Ranger Lieutenant gives Rangers Vicious, and they already have Marksman, and they can control objectives. Vehicles can't. So you're making Rangers more efficient. Now, arguably what you'll do, though, with the Canis command vehicle is it'll affect things like if you've got a Strider or like a gunship, and you'll at least get to reroll a single die for each gun on the model. And that's not bad. But what I'm looking at, and again, coming from the way I would play, is I would probably focus more on Rangers and, infantry so that I can flood objectives and probably trickle them out in waves and then use my vehicles to kind of sit back and support. But I don't know that that's worth the amount of points you would bring. 105 points for this. I don't know. Like that to me is why I would put it in 4th place, not higher. And then in 3rd, I'd probably put the Major Removing 2 pin tokens is nice, and having a green command die is nice. But at the same time, I think I would just rather have the Ranger Lieutenant, because Rangers are pretty efficient. They're pretty good. They throw some dice. They have, marksmen. They can get vicious. Overall, Rangers are good. You can bring the Ranger Lieutenant to make them better. Scout is very handy. Stealthy is very handy. So removing 2 pins is kind of cool. But what the Ranger Lieutenant brings and what it can do for your Rangers is also really cool. So I would probably put Rangers in second. I would put the Rangers in second, or the Ranger Lieutenant in second. So we would put the Forward Observer, I would say, is fifth. The Command Vehicle is fourth. The Marine Major is third. The Ranger Lieutenant is second. And I would put the Marine Lieutenant in first. And that's just because of, one, it's super cheap. 45 points get you a black command die. 45 points gets you the ability to steady aim and still move. And that works for all troop and command units. So again, that's very good. And remember that Rangers are troops, veterans, recruits. You have a lot of options there. Marine heavy weapons teams are troops. So you could steady aim with them and then still move them. So you have all these really good options that you can use this aura on. And it just makes your army a lot more mobile and able to better contend with things like Night Stalkers, where they just inherently have -1 to hit across the board when you're shooting at them. So I just think the flexibility that the Marine Lieutenant brings, and the fact that you can bring 2 or 3 of them and have a couple of those auras all over the table, very, very useful. Yes, it's a little expensive at 2 command points, but if you've got maybe 2 Marine Lieutenants and a Ranger Lieutenant, and you could actually bring a 4th command unit, I don't normally run a ton of command units, but in GCPS, I would consider running 3 to 4. I don't know what most people run, but I would consider running 3 to 4. But that's where I look at it. That's how I would rank them. I have not heard back from the rules committee. So like I said, if you know, make sure that's how that aura works. Let me know. And, let me know in the comments. If I hear back from the rules committee, I'll make sure I post a comment. As always, there's a bunch of links in the description. Check them out. I appreciate it.